Hi, Year 10, Mr. Tapley here to walk you through your next lesson of Year 10 Geography in week 5 of term 2. Before I get started, I just want to say congratulations, well done on completing the dev task, the forest dev task. Almost everyone has submitted that, except for the people who have asked me for extensions. So well done there. If you haven't submitted it and you haven't asked for an extension, I'll be hitting you up with an email. You get a notification either on Google or Compass or wherever, just asking what's happening, where is your progress. It's possible you've submitted it but I just haven't found it. So yeah, into the lesson though. So what we are looking at now is climate. So we've looked at environmental change, what is an environment, biodiversity, we've looked at a specific type of environment. Now we're looking more generally around the world. So we're looking at the world climate. So developing our understanding of a climate. A lot of people confuse the term climate with weather. Two different terms, two different things, and we'll talk about that in this lesson. And how they impact human well-being. So how is my human well-being going to be impacted if I live in, a desert climate? I'm living in the middle of the Sahara Desert, which is why I'm so tan, obviously. Success criteria is to identify world climates and explain the interconnection, is that word again, between location, population, and climate. Some of you with a bit of foresight might see that we're looking at climate and rightly think, well, we're looking at climate change soon, and that is correct. So we're looking at climates. Before we look at what is climate change, we want to see, well, what is climate? Because often we don't think about that first word there. So, defining climate. Climate refers to the long-term weather patterns of a region. So the long-term weather patterns of a location. So that includes the temperature, the precipitation, so rainfall, snow, wind, etc. Climate affects the environment's ability to sustain life, so it's impacting the environment obviously, and it greatly impacts human well-being because humans are part of the environment. So the difference between climate and weather is short-term thing that's changing every day. You get the weather report that's happening just today. Climate is referring to the long-term, emphasis on long, weather patterns of a region. So if you look at a map of the world, you'll see that the most populated cities and regions, settled hundreds or thousands of years ago, they were settled because of their climate. They didn't just, flip a coin or throw a dart at a map. They picked those places because of their climate. Villages and cities were built where the temperature was favorable, where there was rainfall that allowed farmers to provide food for the people, so crops, cattle. So climate has a huge impact on our population, our location, our history, and then our human well-being. If I have a really crap climate, an extreme hot temperature, no rain, I'm not going to have much of a human well-being because I'm not going to have food, not going to have water, etc. Climate and population. So the current world population, at the time of this recording, is approximately 7.8 billion with B, and increasing around 81 million per year. This population increase forces people to live in what we call marginal climate regions that were previously considered unsuitable for farming and settlement. So in the past, hundreds of thousands of years ago, your choice of the land. There wasn't, much people around. It was free real estate, so you could just settle in the best of the best locations. Now, with this world population approaching, almost 8 billion people, it's forcing people to settle somewhere where they wouldn't want to settle. So these marginal climate regions that were previously considered unsuitable for farming and settlement. So, 100 years ago, you'd say, I will never, ever, ever live there. And then 2020, you're like, well, there's literally nowhere else for me to go. It's too expensive to afford real estate in Glen Waverley. I'm going to live over there. So we have developed technology and advanced farming practices, irrigation, to support human life in these harsh climates. However, consider the human well-being of people living in these marginal climate regions. And what would happen if climate change made other regions unsuitable for human life? So that was something that was mentioned in the Before the Flood documentary, that climate change is going to create places in the world that are uninhabitable. So it's going to make some places that have just enough rain to survive. If that rainfall goes away because of climate change, all of a sudden these people can no longer live there. They're going to be forced into marginal climate regions. They're going to be forced away from their homes where it's safe to live, where they have food and water. They're going to be forced out of there because of climate change. So you've already got people living in these marginal climate regions. The issue is that we can't really support more people with our current setup. And if climate change makes more of the world uninhabitable, that's going to have serious consequences for human life, for human well-being of those people living there. So the differences in human well-being around the world can be connected to the availability of natural resources provided by the environment. So clean air, water, food, fertile land that grows crops really well. These resources, the quality and the quantity of those resources, are impacted by the climate. You need water, sunlight to grow food. You need rainfall, you need mountains that will protect you from harsh winds and etc. So your climate, your environment, it's all connected to human well-being. The variances, so the differences in rainfall, temperature, and soil fertility will create unequal levels of water and food security around the world. So since there is no such thing as a universal climate, it's not like the temperature in Melbourne was the exact same temperature as the temperature in New York today. Since we have these differences in climate, it means there's going to be differences in those resources that climates provide. So there's going to be different levels of water and food security around the world. And then on top of that, in some places, land degradation, so degrading, destroying the land and exploiting resources, so taking too many of those resources, have created water and food shortages for millions of people. So, now that you guys have a bit of background info on climate, what I'd like you to do is, in your digital notebook, I want you to read through pages 178 and 179, which are in chapter 4, and I'll show you where those are in a moment. I've uploaded them to Compass and Google Classroom, so no excuses, and you really should have the textbook and the ebook. Why am I doing this for you? Anyway, so you're looking at questions 1 to 3. These questions are in the slide, but they are also in the textbook. So, question 1. Which natural resources are important in providing food and water security? So with all that you know about environment, all that you know about climate and what a climate can do for humanity, what natural resources are important in providing food and water security? Question 2. How does the uneven distribution of resources help to explain variations in human well-being? So human well-being is our health and happiness. We've learned in term 1 that it is different around the world. How does the uneven distribution of resources, so 10A has 100 gallons of water over there, and then across the building down the SciTech building, 10C have got 20 gallons of water or something. I don't know why I said gallons, liters. Anyway, American. So how does the uneven distribution of resources help to explain differences in human well-being? What's the connection there? Question 3. Compare source 4.6 and source 3.31. So two images, two maps. And I'll show you those maps in the textbook and on the next slide. So compare those two maps. Can you find evidence that certain environmental constraints on food production, so what they're saying there is, can you find evidence that having restrictions on food production, having low food production, have led to lower levels of human development? So is there a connection between having low food production, so not enough food, and then low human development, so low HDI, low human well-being? And then use specific names in your answer, not John and Bill. Use names of the states, the regions in the country. So for question 3, you'll see it on this next slide here. So source 3.31. That actually shows you the HDI. So again, we're measuring human well-being in India. And you can see you've got the names of the different regions there. And then green, dark green, you're looking at high human well-being. And then orange, low, it's very low human well-being. Same place over here, India. And this map over here is showing restraints or restrictions on food production. So if you look at the legend, oh bollocks, spoilers for next lesson. If you look at the legend, the different colors show different limitations on food production. So for example, yellow, in yellow regions like up here, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, so I apologize, you've got Rajasthan. I apologise to anyone from Rajasthan. In the yellow region there, it's very dry. So it's very dry, it's very cold, so it's cold, there's not enough rain, and there's low crop production. So in old mate Rajasthan, there's not going to be as much food as there would be in, for example, Himachal Pradesh. Why did I pick the whole long one? And if I look at these pink areas, these bright pink ones, severely degraded land. So the restriction there on food production is the land's crap, basically. So in those crappy farming lands, are we seeing high well-being or low well-being? So that's what you're answering in question 3. And I'll just show you where pages 178, 179 are as well in your textbook. So this is in chapter 4, environmental factors and well-being. So it talks about variations of water and food security. So again, if you're looking at those questions, you're like, I have no idea. Maybe read through these pages here as the slides have asked you to. Anyway, so it talks about water and food security. You'll see that map that should look very familiar, and then you've got your questions there, and that's page 178, 179. And where you can find those as well, I've uploaded them to Compass. Those are nice and easy to find. I have changed the setup in Google Classrooms. Previously I had like chapter 1, chapter 2. Now instead of having 4 separate like files you have to click on, if you just click on textbook, you'll see that I've popped 1, 2, 3, and 4, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 into the one location. So you can just click on that one in our Google Classroom resources, and then that'll get you to chapter 4, where you'll find pages 178, 179. If you have any questions, guys, please let me know. Questions about the dev, questions about the content, or just in general. Please let me know. Hope you guys are well. Cheers.